But if this omnipotent being does not respond back, how do you know that he does?
A rather reasonable question. If someone really wants us to know they are hiding in the cupboard and has the ability to call out that they are in the cupboard and has our phone number and unlimited minutes and the ability to speak directly into our minds, but does none of that and is surprised when George Clooney inevitably shoots them in the face, well, we've all been there.
Okay, that gets back to the question of why I believe God exists.
Oh, cool. Always fun to hear someone's reasoning for why they believe. Let's hope that all the reasons are not lacking in the very characteristic that makes them reasons, and they end up being extremely unreasonable instead, and more than a little bit silly. Who am I kidding? This is the Sir Sick YouTube channel. You would be disappointed if it were anything else.
Which is a very important question.
Why you believe is a very important question. I mean, it's a question, all right, but it's not even close to important. I mean, who even are you? All you've ever done, in my experience, is stand outside and say about 20 words to some other guy I don't know. Now, to be fair, that's because I've only just discovered your existence in the last minute and a half, but that's kind of the point. Surely an actually important question is, why am I such a pedantic wanker? Well, mostly because I think it's funny.
I don't believe God exists.
Alright, awesome, let's get out of here before he says more words and ruins the joke.
Because he's answered my prayers.
Damn it! And wait, are you suggesting that he has answered your prayers? I mean, that would be a hell of a thing. Here's hoping that if that's the case, at least in your mind, that those prayers that have been answered weren't things that happen in reality regardless of a deity intervening. Like, say, praying that you get the job when you were perfectly qualified for it, so it's kind of a toss-up between you and any other candidate, if there even are any. God is not on the hiring board, I promise you. Or you prayed and prayed and prayed that one day you would be able to afford that expensive MacGuffin you always wanted. You know, God didn't work all those hours. You did. You earned that. Frankly, if God answered prayers, I would expect shit like, I levitated 50 feet into the air and smited my enemies with lightning from my fingertip. Thanks, God. That's a fucking prayer answered. Because I have, like, so many enemies to smoted.
Okay? I believe that God exists because the order and the design of the cosmos points to a designer.
Oh, tough luck, me old chum. That's actually a really, really shit argument, I'm afraid. See, the thing is, the universe is in fact not designed, and we actually know that because we checked. It turns out that the universe is the way it is because systems will inevitably balance out. What you see as order is just what happens when something has been happening so long that all the forces have reached equilibrium. No one put anything where it ended up. Nothing is in some sort of supposed to be location. That's just what happened. Like, think of it this way. If I sat there pouring humans out of a bucket, as you do, into a big pile, eventually I'm going to run out of bodies and the pile is going to take its shape, whatever that happens to be. Now, would you say I designed that pile of humans, or that I am the world's best mass murderer? Exactly. And I'll take my award whenever I lose these cops who keep harassing me for some reason.
I believe that God exists because everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe has a beginning, therefore the universe has to have a cause.
Do you want to let him know, or should I? You can't say that and have God left out for no reason, especially not without justification. I mean, for one, you're assuming that the universe had a beginning. How do you know that? And you don't get to tell me book, though. Or that God told you when he gave you those flying lightning powers. You actually have to demonstrate your claim. Now, to be fair, you could argue, well, everything in the universe has a beginning, so the universe must too. And while that's a fair assumption, it's still not actually something that you know. Because, well, assumption. So with this, you believe in God because you've made an unbacked assertion about the universe. Very compelling.
I believe that God exists because the anthropic principle, life is balanced on a razor's edge.
I'm not sure that means what you think it means. I think you are thinking of the fine-tuning arguments, because the anthropic principle, at least in many instances, demonstrates how the universe probably isn't that. The only reason you would think that the universe has to be the way it is to support life is because you are alive in that universe. That is to say, if the universe didn't have the attributes it does, you would not exist to make the argument that it has to. But the thing about life is it can take many forms. The life forms that exist on Earth, while seemingly unusual in what we know of the universe, aren't necessarily the only way life could exist, because many will argue that life will only form on a planet like ours. But that's largely because we've yet to see another type of planet with different features produce life. But that doesn't actually mean it could never happen, or in fact hasn't happened. Also, the knife edge is actually surprisingly big for how much change could happen in the universe, and life as we know it would still have happened right here.
To try and argue that all this just happened by chance is absurd for me.
And that's enough for you to know that it clearly didn't. Cool. But to me, the idea that there's a guy out there who made the universe as vast and wide and deep as it is, uncountable numbers of celestial objects and wonders mankind will never ever see, decided to, for no other reason than lol, to make a very specific planet do all the things to do that life needed, that by the way, we do know exist as properties elsewhere in the universe on other planets, and he didn't even need to do that. And then decided that they all really, really need to know him and love him and praise him and tell him every day, but makes little to no effort to do so, as effectively admitted by the premise of these 10 reasons list. Well, it's a little hard to swallow. Just like my car.
I believe that God exists because the amount of information in the DNA of a single cell.
P of War and Peace. I don't know why you would even want to swallow it, and oh shit, sorry, editing error. Anyway, the amount of information in a single cell. Really? For starts, you want to define information? I mean, in my experience, what you mean by information when you guys talk about it is literally fucking anything, as in complexity, but not like information density. Because while 1,000 copies of my giant car, P of War and Peace, that you keep refusing to eat for some reason, will contain the information of 560 million words or so, that doesn't mean that having that many copies gives you more actual content. It's just the same content repeated over and over and over again. The same is kind of true for cells. While DNA is full of nucleotide sets, some are repeated, others do nothing at all. Some is likely to have some form of mutation, most of the times benign, but it's still information that has changed to reflect a different piece of information from, the one that God apparently put there. Almost like some sort of other process was happening. And I guess in this comparison, my 1,000 books of War and Peace, most of them have been set on fire.
Is so densely packed, it demands an intelligent mind.
Does it though? As I alluded to before, we have another explanation for how a thing in the universe happened. In this case, DNA coming to be the way it is. Not because that God did it though, but actually shonk horomp, evolution. It's explained rather nicely how a cell became more complex over time, including its DNA. And we even have
evidence.
Tell me, what evidence do you have that shows that God came down to Earth, pulled out his little cell making kit, and knitted up a few kajillion cells? I'm guessing it's none, because, that's fucking stupid.
I believe that God exists because it's more reasonable to believe that life comes from life than it is to believe that life comes from non-life.
I'm sorry, what now? Are you claiming that God is in fact alive? I mean, no, that's really an interesting question. If God is divine, how could what we call life, a definition that humans came up with, by the way, not God, well, what makes you think that those definitions even remotely apply to God? And I don't want none of your God is life shit, because again, that's just a claim. That's a thing you are saying, an opinion you are having, not a thing you can actually demonstrate to be true. Also, what makes you think life cannot come from non-life? If it happened, it would have happened in a time when everything was so different, it probably couldn't happen now, at least outside of lab conditions. So the only way you could know would be to exhaust all the possible ways that life could have formed from non-living material. And somehow, I seriously doubt you've fucking done that.
I believe that God exists because I noticed that human beings have this innate drive for meaning in life.
You noticed, did you? You make it sound like that's an observation that isn't, kind of fucking normal. But, so? How would that possibly be concluded with, therefore, to goddamn real? All meaning is humans' attempts to square the fact that life is so obviously chaotic and random with the fact that they exist. If they didn't strive for meaning, they would probably go a bit strange, at least people who can't square those things together. And usually, those that do create their own meaning without the need for any kind of God. If I were as dumb as you, I would argue the fact that I can find meaning without invoking a cosmic narcissist means that there can't possibly be one. But I'm not, so I won't.
The only way there can be real meaning in life is if God created us for a purpose.
Oh, so your issue is that if there isn't meaning, that's bad, therefore God. But something being an unfavorable outcome does not make that outcome untrue. This is so obviously false, it scarcely needs explaining. But to put it a far more obvious way, still being poor does not mean that you have won the lottery, for instance. Also, not to mention the fact that there could be a God, and yet still no meaning. Just because something we would recognize as a god, if that happened to turn up, that wouldn't mean that anything that happened was intentional or that they give a shit about anyone, especially you. I mean, if your god is real, that is 100% the case, because it's clear he doesn't give a fuck about humans. I mean, why would he make them look like that? Ugh.
That's a face even a mother could kill.
And this innate drive that I noticed that we human beings have for meaning is best explained by the fact that we were created for a purpose.
I'll be honest, that was actually kind of my fault. This audio was horrible, so I ran it through some of that dreaded AI stuff, Sumi. I have to listen to this shit too. He doesn't actually say we were created for perp. It was for a purpose. Now, to be fair, I think it's right in the first place, because God is totally a criminal. I mean, that guy keeps stealing my best ideas and claiming them as his own. I mean, drowning all the humans, that was obviously my idea. Getting people to murder their kids as a joke, there's a reason it sounds like something I would say. And come on, starting your whole thing off by going, hey, see this tree that's conspicuously in the middle of everything, that if you fuck with, it's gonna be an excuse for me to start torturing you forever. I'ma just leave the forbidden tree of mystery right here, next to this suspicious talking reptile.
I believe that God exists because the evidence...
Alright, I admit it, I may have stretched the silence out a bit, but come on, that's some funny shit. I believe in God because evidence, anyway, moves on, is actually quite a common reasoning for the God man, though.
of a conscience that ties me into moral absolutes, demands a moral lawgiver.
Moral absolutes absolutely don't exist. The reason that humans have so many things that they largely all agree on is because there are things that help the species survive. But you'll see I say largely because for some reason they don't agree on everything. In fact, there are many of the smaller things that some don't even perceive as a moral issue that others will lose their fucking minds over. How could that even be possible in a universe with moral absolutes? Well, because it's not. Because the more survivally ones that people still don't all agree on, FYI, many of people's morality decisions are based not on some universal moral fact, but because of their upbringing or the people they have interacted with, ideas that they have been convinced of, because when they thought about it, it became an obvious thing. One thing clearly wasn't wrong, and some other thing probably is, and yet still so much disagreement. I wonder why.
I believe that God exists because I experience love.
Chemical reactions happen in your brain that feel kind of nice, therefore God. This might as well be smoke some weed. Does everything seem kind of chill right now? Well, that's because those are God's pubes, you dirty bastard. I mean, for fuck's sake, as if the compulsion to monogamy being selected for by evolution, causing both sex to feel good, so, you want to do it, and the feeling of love so that you don't eat your kids and yeet your wife the second something that might possibly be better comes along, aren't better explainers for that particular feeling.
And if there is no God, love is simply a biochemical reaction. I'm sorry, my experience of reality is there's more to love than simply a biochemical reaction.
How would you possibly know that? Seriously, have you experienced some sort of non-God made love in order to compare? Because that sounds like a hell of a drug. The fact that you are keeping this love drug that, while clearly not quite as good as real love TM, is comparable enough that it is, comparable. I think that would sell like hotcakes. Also, what is this more to love that wouldn't also function in a world that is simply a biochemical reaction? And if you say, 'cause feelings, I have some news about what feelings are, buddy.
I believe that God exists because I experience free will. And free will shows me that there's more to you and me than just a machine.
No, what you experience is the sensation of having free will. There's no way you can demonstrate to me that you can make decisions that are beyond you having a reaction to the world around you and the chemicals that make you doing a thing. If you can, you are clearly one of the greatest scientists who ever lived. And to reference the start of the video, who the fuck are you again? Oh right, nobody, except some guy on the street talking about his biases. Cool.
We're human beings with a free will. That demands there be a God, a personal being, who creates us and gives us this free will.
Again, gods do not equal the existence of free will. While I don't believe in free will as you see it, even if it's real, that in no way dictates that a god must have done that. That, and I have said it time and time again, if you believe in a god that knows everything that is going to happen, that is entirely incompatible with free will. The future cannot be written and you make choices that have any meaning whatsoever, because that's not how anything works.
I believe that there's a God because I notice that all human beings, myself included, have a drive for life after death.
All? What the f*** are you talking about? You have noticed something that literally isn't true, because there are plenty of people who do not have that apparent drive. Shocking that you would notice something that isn't factual. Oh wait, no, completely unsurprising for someone who has noticed the existence of fakeismo.
The only way there can be life after death is if there is some type of God who is able to give us this life after death.
For the last time, thing and other thing that is not strictly related to thing, even if true, one does not show the other. This is not difficult.
So those are 10 pieces of evidence that point to God's existence. That's why I believe God exists, for those 10 reasons.
No, those were whatever number of claims about the universe that you have no way of demonstrating, and some that are just plain false. Frankly, if that's why anyone should believe in God, I can only assume that he's not fucking real.
Wait, before you go, I have something super important to tell you. It's life or death. It will change everything forever. No, wait, it's gone. Oh well, probably wasn't important. But while I have you, don't forget to comment, subscribe and notify. And if you want more of my smexy voice, check out Mrs. Six's channel, Spoonstar Stories, where I narrate and voice all the videos, and she does the work. And if you want to support the channel, check out the merch store for cool t-shirts, or check out Patreon, memberships and PayPal to support directly. Finally, follow me on the medias of social to get completely pointless guff and to keep up on the latest releases. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to tell you. Whatever you do, don't touch the